Call the meeting to order.
Watts,
Yes.
Nichols, Miller,
Yes.
Lush,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
The first order of business is the approval of the minutes from the study session on July 30th, 2014.
Move for approval of minutes. Second.
Watts,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Lush,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
And now the regular meeting, August 11 minutes.
I move for passage of the minutes.
Second.
Watts,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Lush,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Next, we have a presentation of the Comprehensive Plan of Mexico, the 2014 update. Brian Hamilton of Hafer Wysocki.
Thank you. We understand that you have a full agenda tonight, so we'll kind of keep this a little briefer than the previous two times we presented this today.
Yeah, haven't we seen, we've seen you before, haven't we?
Yeah, it does look familiar. Well, thank you, and we just want to give an overview of the comprehensive plan as it's coming into wrapping up into finalizing the draft. Again, I think one of the salient points to this, it's a community resource, community guide to help decision-making with leadership and staff in the community itself. We kind of pride ourselves in a bend but don't break philosophy that will accommodate market-driven opportunities and built into the framework of the plan. Essentially, the plan in the big picture, the major layers to it, character areas, which are land use and development, community threads, which are the mobility and the environment that kind of tie it all together, and then community-wide systems, those things that support the community at a larger level. Quickly through the character areas, we have specific recommendations or for consideration, such as the core area, and that's about preserving, reinforcing, stabilizing the core area neighborhoods within the city. We address the emerging areas. Some of them may be already built. Some of them may be potential neighborhoods in waiting. And essentially what the recommendations are there is about placemaking, creating neighborhoods rather than a series of plats or disconnected lots. We present some alternative development models for consideration, such as the neighborhood village concept, which has a little more diversity in terms of its residential product and built around commercial retail at the neighborhood scale. We also address kind of that rural residential experience. So ultimately in the neighborhoods, if you want to live in Mexico, you have an opportunity for just about every environment that you would want. And each one of these have specific recommendations and strategies for consideration. We talked about mixed use in the plan, give attention to downtown Village Square, really reinforce and continue that kind of urban pedestrian-oriented environment. We talk about mixed use in the sense of developing the arts campus where the PAC currently is. Working with the PAC and others, pursuing opportunities to create kind of that arts-related or art-centric development that have a variety of uses, whether it's entertainment, retail, or residential, all in the campus environment. We address the corridors as mixed use, really allowing and accommodating a variety of businesses, and I think the key is in these corridors, it's the setting, in terms of setbacks, access and egress, the opportunity to enhance connectivity along the corridor and within site to site. We talk about the village center concept, creating focus places for neighborhoods to have human scale development that focuses on goods and services that serve or are focused on servicing the needs of the residents. We talk about the opportunities of large-scale commercial centers in terms of strategically developing those in conjunction with existing or potential new infrastructure improvements along 54. We talk about employment anchors, such as the business campus, in terms of aggressively pursuing redevelopment or further development in the Missouri Plant Science Center and adaptive reuse of AP Green in terms of pursuing office, pursuing industrial and really looking at that as the research, development, and innovation catalyst for the city of Mexico. Talk about business parks to really support or accommodate industrial, light industrial, manufacturing, distribution, and warehouse. So all those underlying community or character areas are all connected by these community threads. When we talk about community threads, we talk about the environment in terms of parks and open space. You have a parallel parks master plan that was done during this process. We have a whole degree of actions and strategies that complement that, and were built from listening to the public in terms of our public outreach process. We also talk about this concept of the Conservation Greenway Corridor, actually preserving woodland areas, stream corridors, things that create a natural thread throughout the community, preservation of habitat, and that these are the areas that are usually not suitable for development, but there are good opportunities in terms of developing a community-wide trail or areas for low-intensive development such as overlooks or council rings, things where people within the city can engage nature on a fairly accessible basis. With that, we also have a thread overlay with trails. I think the one thing that we heard universally in the process was trails are a good thing, but preferred to be off-street and limit the on-street facilities. Again, these are strategically been developed to connect parks, schools, destinations, and neighborhoods. And again, a detailed process should be undertaken with any parks master plan to update with the community to set priorities on alignments and implementation. We talk about mobility in terms of vehicular circulation as a community thread. The intent of the plan is not to change the hierarchy of the function of any street within the city of Mexico. It's more of a direction in terms of creating higher amenity experiences. Some of the basic tenets in terms of the functionality are, though, that at some point the city should probably consider taking a transportation master plan. Residential roads should always limit, or to the best of the ability, cut through traffic within neighborhoods. And this concept of the complete street philosophy, sidewalks, lighting, when funding is appropriate or available. And that'll help the city prioritize funding for these in terms of safe routes to school, park and trail access, and other locations based on funding resources. The amenity component of that's probably one of the more key elements in terms of the transportation component. This concept of the avenues, South Clark, West Monroe, East Liberty, enhancing wayfinding, improvements are made, off-street trail, sidewalk, intersection access, and egress improvements. The concept of parkways, which isn't intended to increase traffic, but to create a more memorable experience for the pedestrian and the motorist to some degree. And basically, these are extension of parks. So anytime you're on a potential parkway, it's going to connect you with either a school or a park within the city or future development. Give some options on potential commercial roadways in terms of as development occurs in industrial parks or business campuses, having those facilities as a catalytic infrastructure to service them and to mitigate any cut-through traffic through neighborhoods. And again, obviously supporting the Coalition for a Better 54. Community systems overall, public and civic facilities, always work with, do a detailed evaluation of needs, expansion of new facilities, equipment, whatever. The city center, this concept of Mexico and Andre County. Sorry, this is the third time we've done this. Andre County, in terms of the evaluation of space needs and potential growth there. The key concept of that is that it as a catalytic development needs to be in downtown square or the downtown village, urban format, accessible in terms of the public realm, and we have a whole list of considerations and strategies for that. Education was a key highlight from the public participation plan. You know, it's really not the goal of the plan, or nor should it be, to interfere or influence current educational missions of both public and private entities. Essentially, what the plan is saying is support efforts and keep an ongoing dialogue with educators and institutions around here, and when appropriate, work with them if they're building new facilities or promote schools as neighborhood anchors when those opportunities arrive, and especially with the ATC, that should be continued to be supported by the city to whatever means, to create kind of a multi-building campus and that collegiate destination within the city. Community facilities, continue to monitor those through the Parks Master Planning process, but always explore partnerships like with the Mexico YMCA or the Library District to see if there's any benefit in terms of joint projects that meets the needs of the community. Healthcare, again, it's not the purview of the comprehensive plan to influence or change a healthcare business plan or business mission. What really the plan is saying is, to the city's best of ability, work with healthcare professionals to ensure that AMC maintains a presence in Mexico, preferably in their current location, and if they expand, the recommendation would be that they expand to some degree towards the town square. If they ever comes a time where they may need a greenfield facility, the city should work with them and find an appropriate site. But the key goal is to keep Audrey Medical Center in Mexico. Historic preservation, we go through a series of lists of strategies and actions to further that historic preservation mission. And there's a whole host of design amenities through gateways, signage, branding systems that we've responded to kind of the strong statement by the community for beautification and image within the city. A whole host of stormwater and wastewater recommendations that can be found in the plan. So as a 20,000 foot level, all these layers kind of create this kind of bend but don't break philosophy in terms of meaningful community building within the city of Mexico. And so that's kind of the quick overview of the plan for now. Right now I'd like to introduce Troy Nash, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the economic development and implementation that is in the plan.
Thank you very much, Brian. Mr. Mayor, distinguished members of the City Council, City Administrator. We will be very brief. As Brian said, this is the 300th time today we've done this, and so I like the bend but don't break. I'm memorizing your speech.
Ben.
Yeah.
Brian.
One of the things that we want to point out, and I said over at the other meeting, is the fact that much of the work that Brian and his team, other team members, have done with respect to the land use and the physical framework and all these things that he talked about, it's important for you all to know and to understand and realize that it's rooted in real world assumptions. In other words, this is not some pie in the sky stuff. And from a recommendation standpoint and implementation standpoint, the work reflects our recognition that globalization has fundamentally changed the way economic development is done in the United States, in this region, in this state, and certainly in this community. Immigration is changing the landscape as well. We see more and more immigrants coming to Audrain County, changing the makeup of the schools and how the community functions as a whole. We talked about that earlier. One of your colleagues on the Planning Commission talked earlier about education, and some of you may say, well, what does education have to do with economic development? Everything. If you cannot produce an educated workforce, a competent workforce, companies will go elsewhere. And finally, these recommendations reflect an emphasis on entrepreneurship and innovation, really tapping into that entrepreneurial proclivity that exists here in this community, working proactively with the chamber, your county officials and others, streamlining your public sector partners, getting all of those folks on the same page and saying to the private sector in a very clear and convincing way, how can we work together to leverage private sector development and encourage economic development in this community. And so the implementations reflect that. We think they're a good set of recommendations. We think they're rooted in the real world. With that, if there are any questions, concerns, or comments, Brian will entertain them at this time.
Yeah, it's a quick overview, but we'll be more than happy to, because I know you guys read this page cover to cover, right?
I don't know if they did, but.
That all 238
Well, I was on the
pages.
committee, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, we
What's your
we appreciate the
recommendations?
opportunity.
Well, I'm going to pick your brain a little bit so
Okay.
people will know a little bit more. Because
Sure.
not only do we have the audience here, I know
Okay.
people watch us online too. So there's people that won't come to a meeting that might enjoy seeing this. So, few quick overviews. How many people participated in this?
Oh,
I know you don't know exact, but I mean
yeah, I mean.
roundabout.
I think probably averaged between 80 and 100 at all the work sessions that we did. I have to pull out the document, but we actually identified, I think there were several thousand hits on the e-crowdsourcing and close to over 800 comments or inputs into that. So, for a community this size, I thought it was very exceptional.
My point in that was to let people know there was a lot of participation.
There
It
was.
wasn't just a few people.
Right.
'Cause,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Second thing, a lot of the beautification and the signage you said, it looks really good. We have the special thing that DOT controls most of our major roads. Have you guys come across that kind of, is DOT usually acceptable to put this kind of stuff up, or?
Yeah, I will say from professional experience over the past 20 years, there's been a change in terms of how Department of Transportation has at least opened the dialogue. If you look down some places in Texas and Kansas, and I think even in Missouri, it was unheard of. You have a roundabout coming off an off ramp and all that, and I think it's for MoDOT or it's KDOT or TxDOT. I think there is a culture now that they understand that transportation and the facilities need to be responsive to the community they serve, and they are vital in terms of meaningful economic development. Now, that doesn't guarantee that they go along with everything, but there's always strategies. There's nothing that precludes implementation, and sometimes you might have to find some partners that have land outside the right of way, or sometimes it may be a win-win situation that can occur. So 20 years ago, I might have been a little skeptical, but now I think it's pretty common throughout the United States.
Okay, now that was the nice, easy stuff. But I've enjoyed you guys, and you
Throwing her
guys are honest, and that's what I like about you guys. You guys are honest when I ask questions. So, what would you? I guess this would be for both of you because you kind of work on two different areas. What would you say would be 2 quick wins for the city? And what would be your top two recommendations for quick wins economically and for the plan as a whole? And then what would be your top 2 long-term things we should look at?
Well, probably the quick victory that is probably the first one listed in there is consensus and adoption of the plan by leadership.
That doesn't count.
You throw me a lob, I'm going to throw it.
I just changed my question to top 3, okay?
I think, as Troy and I were talking, we think that there is a very good opportunity with the Missouri Plant Science Campus based on, property ownership, the synergy there, the uniqueness that it could be branded and proactively marketed to. It fits with research, innovation, and development, which is kind of the hot thing right now. It's, whether it's biomed, animal science, or agriculture, that's an underdeveloped resource or asset that you have right now. And we're not saying that it hasn't been aggressively pursued, but hopefully this plan will help be one of those tools to go help make the case for Mexico and that. The other quick victories, it depends on your resources. Some quick victories are adopting a plan, or maybe you come to determination that, hey, look, if we're going to have to implement this in a meaningful manner, we may have to actually revamp a zoning ordinance. Or can you go out and find funding or a benevolent benefactor to do one gateway? Or can you do the street signage things? There's a whole host, and hopefully the plan is intended, especially in the work plan, which is in the implementation, that kind of outlines, here's some things that are probably a 1 to 5 year consideration, and these are 10 years plus, that you can begin to prioritize those and understand your resources and understand the funding availability over there, and begin to prioritize what you guys want to take on in the next 5 years. I think your question was, what were going to be the hardest?
Well, long
Or
term.
let me ask Troy, do you have anything else to add to the low-hanging fruit?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I don't have the actual fruit, but I have some comments to make. Beyond the brick and mortar, though, and beyond the financials and working with the bankers and all that stuff, as I listen to your question, Councilman, I'm reminded you have to do the soft stuff first, which oftentimes is the hardest part of economic development. And I talked a little bit about it across the street. But really, this whole notion or idea of you all as a community collectively trusting your instinct. In other words, Brian, his mother-in-law lived right up the street. Last time we had a meeting here, I had dinner. This time I get nothing. But his mother-in-law lived right up the street. But Brian and I do not live here. So with all the statistical analysis and all the best practices that you all have at your disposal, ultimately you're going to have to continue to trust your own instincts because you live here every day. This is not a part-time deal. The other thing I would encourage you all to do to sort of prep yourself for the inevitable development that will take place, because I think you're on the right track, that is, don't be afraid to fail. As I said across the street, taking a chance is the price we pay for progression. Somebody's going to have to risk something somewhere. Now, let me be clear here, because this is a public meeting. We had some crazy consultant from Kansas City say spend all the money out of the general fund. I didn't say that, and that's not what I'm advocating. What I am suggesting is that the public sector and the private sector get together and figure out ways to work together to where the deal is structured in a way that shares in the risk and the rewards of the venture. That's what I'm trying to say. And finally, as I said across the street, ignore the naysayers. There's going to be, in every community, there are those who wake up every morning, they brush their teeth, they comb their hair, they do all the right things, and they walk out the door, and their sole purpose in life is to figure out how to ruin somebody's day. How many of you know people like that? They're just negative for no reason. They're just always, so you have to ignore the naysayers. I didn't say, as I said across the street, ignore constructive criticism or people with different opinions, but that small group that gets together, wherever groups get together in these communities and say, we don't want to do anything. You're going to have to provide the necessary leadership when you're doing that to move forward despite that. So those are the things, Councilman, I think, that are worthy of mention of what you need to do to put the building blocks and the foundation in place to do all the other things that Brian just so eloquently spoke about a short moment ago.
Well, while you're here, because I enjoyed the conversation we had over there a little bit, I don't think they worded. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think they. A lot of questions were pinpointed at you guys. Of a silver bullet. Basically, they want a silver bullet. I think maybe something that would help would say, what do you guys see as maybe the top 2 strengths of our community that we can focus on real quick and work on, and what are the 2 weaknesses that top 2 weaknesses we could focus on. Not going to change overnight. We should know that, but some people don't get that. But what are those 2 things you would say on each
I'm
end?
going to take the strength and give Brian the the weaknesses, and that is this. As I said before, and Brian and I have talked about this, you all have a thriving entrepreneurial class. In other words, there are people here that will risk their capital. They've done it, and they've been doing it for years. To find and identify that group, and then find those young entrepreneurs who are interested in all this sort of startup activity, and pair the two together. And then invite the bankers and the financiers and the high-powered money in the room, and then do a deal. I mean, that's basically what economic development is about at its core, is deal-making. So find those large property owners, find those who are willing to take risks, and then begin to develop a positive mindset. One lady shared with us across the street how she opened a business, a lady walked in and said, "This will never work." And I told her I believe in good quality customer service, but I would just open the door and just let her walk right out. You don't need that kind of thing. You know, if you think that way all the time and you believe those things, well, then that's what your community is going to be. So I think it starts with that entrepreneur, that innovator, that risk taker, identifying those folks, partnering up with the younger generation, bring in the financiers and the public sector, and work to do a deal. Now, Brian, we have a week.
Well, you stand there, you're doing such a good job. Well, boy, you really put me on the spot here. You know, every community has its assets and it has its challenges, and it's got its strengths and its weaknesses. I think Troy was so eloquent and jumped on it right away on all the assets, but you did ask the question. You know, and I don't even know if I call them weaknesses, but maybe let's call them challenges or unsurmountable opportunities at this point.
I just think people need to know, you know, I mean, because people have come to these meetings and some of them don't want to, you know, some people want to deal with it and some people don't want to deal with it. If you don't acknowledge that you have weaknesses, then you're never going to fix them.
Right.
So,
Okay. Well, there's one of the challenges is getting the enthusiasm, maintaining the enthusiasm, maintaining the stewardship of this process, and that's not specific to your community, but it's specific to any master planning effort. Because I think you go through, you spend a year or two, and you come to the vision, and you've got energized staff, energized leadership, and they carry it through, and then sometimes, you know, the public just kind of falls back. I think one of the challenges, and it's not exclusive to Mexico, is keeping the momentum through public relation, or that reminder that, you know, we do have a vision here. It's just one of the tools in the toolbox. But what in, you know, tasking every person that lives here, is there something that you can champion, or something at least you can support, and carrying that through implementation. If you want something more tangible, because I'm not going to probably get out of here without it, but I will think as excited and as I want to put my foot in my mouth here, but as excited and optimistic that we are, I think the AP Green site's going to be a long day in terms of wholesale redevelopment. And I think the first question you got to ask is, what do you do with the building? It's a beloved icon for the city. I've been coming here for 14 plus years, and we drive by it every time we're here, and it's just the stories. We heard all the stories. We heard all the stories about it, and it's a great part of the history. I think we were surprised in the process that people were like, acknowledge and respect the history, but it's time to move forward. But what do you do with that building, and what do you do with that property per our recommendation to actually get it? Because as my friend Troy, because I'll lay part of the blame on this because it's the same conversation I have, how much more economically feasible is it to build in a greenfield than it is to take that on? And I would suspect that's going to be a big challenge for this. Now, can it be overcome? Yeah, because you've got some things going on there. You've got infrastructure now. But to carry through that is going to be a long day, and it's going to take patience. It's going to probably take several failures at first, but the real obstacle there is going to keep plugging away and keep that site. We have not been in the building. I don't know if it's economically feasible to adaptive reuse, repurpose it or not, but I think it'll be on the top of everybody's mind when something happens there. What are we going to do with that? That's just, and that's not conversation for me, that's just my own personal experience.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything more?
Well, on behalf of the team, unless you have anything else to add to this, Troy, we certainly have appreciated. I'd like to especially acknowledge all the community and the participants, whether they came to workshops or did through the website. We got a lot of great information, and I'm pretty sure that, confident that this plan reflects what we said at the very first. It's not a magic bullet, and it's not going to be everything to everybody, but I think it's going to be something to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Your Honor, I'd make a couple of comments, if I may, at this point. It's been a pleasure to work with you guys, and I know we still got work to do. And as we move forward at this point, you know, we took a lot of comment today from planning and zoning and the public meeting and here this evening. And now we take this draft plan and pull it back together, and we'll be back to council to say, now let's approve it, and that's our next step. And we would, you know, like to do that here soon. I'd like to see, you know, potentially that in the next 30 days. But there's been a lot of work that's gone on with this plan, and I'd be remiss if I didn't at least acknowledge the advisory committee and all their efforts, and Chris Williams, Betty Jo Seidenstricker, Kyle Cohn, Kevin Freeman, Bruce Oliver, Dana Keller, Tony Robertson, Barbara Pickering, Rita Jackson, Kenzie Russell, Stephanie Robinette. Those folks spent a lot of time going through this, looking at this, reading, I don't know, countless pages and drafts and providing comment back. And so we certainly want to thank them, but certainly most of all thank the community for all their comments, because I think you're absolutely right. When I looked at some of those, the website, you know, Envision Mexico, there was, 800 to 1,000 plus comments on that, and all of that was input that was important in drafting where do you want this community to go in the future. And this is as much about a business plan for the city as anything in the direction we're trying to go with the community, and it's a great step forward.
Thank you. Next up, we have a public hearing to rezone property located at Fairground and Teal Lake Road from R1 Single Family Dwelling to R3B Office and Professional.
Move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Clark,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Your Honor, this public hearing concerns a request from Nancy and Kurt Ekron, co-trustees for the Peter Ekron Irrevocable Trust. This is an amendment to rezone property located at Fairgrounds and Teal Lake Road. And to cover the details and location, I will turn to Rita Jackson.
This public hearing concerns a request from Nancy and Kirk Ekron, co-trustees of the H. Peter Ekron Revocable Trust Agreement dated September 27, 1989, as amended, to rezone their property located at Fairground and Teal Lake Road from R1 Single Family Dwellings to R3B Office and Professional. As you can see on the attached map in the highlighted yellow area. The Arthur Center is in the process of acquiring this property to relocate its Hope Center, which is currently located in Fulton, Missouri. In April of 2009, the Arthur Center began operations of the Hope Center. This is a 16-bed residential facility which provides transitional services to persons who could face difficulties returning to the community. This program employs approximately 20 people. Notices were sent to 16 surrounding property owners within 185 feet of the requested rezoning. City staff received one verbal communication regarding the requested rezoning. The caller was requesting additional information and had no objections to the requested rezoning. At the August 5th, 2014 Planning and Zoning meeting, the commission made a motion to make recommendation to City Council to grant approval of the requested rezoning. The minutes were attached. A notice of public hearing was run on August the 7th and August the 14th, and at the time of this meeting, the city has received no additional comment regarding the public hearing. In the audience tonight, we do have Nancy Eckern and Dan Erdl and Linda Hopkins and Terry Mackey. Staff recommends that council proceed with the advertised public hearing.
Are there any questions or comments?
Your Honor, I have a couple, and I think it's important for clarification. And Terry, I'm going to put you on the spot if that's okay. Sure. And I apologize, I probably should have notified you previous. We heard this evening in the comp plan about the city's need to supporting healthcare facilities. And the Arthur Center is really looking at 2 locations right now. And building 2 of those facilities. And I think there's been a little confusion about what each of them are doing. So if you could give us just a little rundown on saying, the 2 separate facilities and what's kind of happening, and just a little more clarification.
Sure. Well, some of you may notice that there's some dirt work already going on sort of behind the ambulance district's new building. Our address there, which we were given an address, so we're at 340 Kelly Parkway, which is at the end of that street. That is actually the new facility. It's a 25,000 square foot facility, which is going to house our community health center, which includes primary care services, family practice, regular doctor kinds of services, dental services, as well as behavioral health services we've always offered through the years. So that particular facility, obviously construction's already underway, and we're anticipating it's going to be completed in July of 2015. The second piece of property that we're talking about tonight is for the 16-bed residential facility, and we like this particular setting because it is very close. The people who are going to live here, some of them actually have their own cars and go to work. Some of them work actually full-time, but others don't have a vehicle. So having proximity to all these Dollar General, McDonald's, and that sort of area out there is we really like that. Secondly, this facility will employ approximately 20 people. There's a few people that work there that already live here, but most of them don't. So many of the jobs are going to be, I guess you'd say, probably those $20,000 to $30,000 a year jobs. So they're not like super high paying, but they are good, solid jobs. We do have a good benefit package. We do have professionals that are on the site and actually run the site. So we have an RN that works there, Monday through Friday days, and then is available at other times. So she makes sure that people have their medical needs met. We also have right now a licensed clinical social worker who basically makes sure that things are run the way that they need to be run, and that people's treatment and their goals are being met. So that particular facility that we're talking about is a facility here. We're anticipating it's an 8,500 square foot facility, we're probably half through with the design phase, maybe even further than that. But I hope that explains the difference between the two.
That's good, appreciate it.
Mr. Mackey, could you tell me a little bit about, is there any security concerns about a neighborhood nearby this? Yeah. Would you live next door to it, or would you have a concern? I don't know. I'm just asking this question.
No, that's fine. We have operated this facility for 5 years in Fulton, and we've never had any so far at least, not to my knowledge, we ever had any incident in the community whatsoever. No one's been arrested. We've had people who have ran, but they weren't running, they were running to Highway 70 to find their way back somewhere else. We've had a couple of those incidents, but they weren't incidents that the community even knew. They were just folks, that were, I guess, trying to find a better place. So there are those folks, but in general, we've had, pretty good relationship. We haven't had any incidents that were concerning the community of Fulton.
And on this particular piece of property, where would it sit? Could you
Sure.
point that out?
It would set approximately from right in here, this square or rectangle right in here. So really, when you're talking about residential, it's still a very significant distance from a whole lot. There are obviously folks that live somewhere in here, the Mexico Apartments, but I think most of them, we know many people who live there, and I don't think it's going to be an issue personally.
And would there be any buffering around that, like maybe a row of trees or
We
something that
intend-
would kind of distinguish this or set this area off?
Right now, there's trees that are going down both sides of Teal Lake Road, and Nancy has certainly voiced her intent that those trees remain in place
Okay.
as much as possible. And we are working with the water company. They have a road that already goes right next to this property, to hopefully maybe share that access to minimize any other cutting of trees along there. We'll have privacy fence
Okay.
behind the facility and, that kind of thing. So really, right now, I think soybeans are our biggest neighbor. We've trampled a few of them, but hopefully we'll minimize that in the next month or so. But I hope that answers your
Oh,
question.
thank you. Appreciate it.
I would ask, and Ron, you probably know more about this than any of us do. There's a significant power grid goes through there. Would that have to be,
That's on the
I
other
believe
side.
yeah,
no, it's on the very end.
Yes.
It's on the very, what would it be, the west end of the property?
Yeah,
Right.
the power grid would go down there. We're all the way up here, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so it wouldn't cause you any significant problem, wouldn't cause you or Ameren any problem?
Well, and there is another one, I guess you'd say, in between us and the Mexico Apartments. There's another one that goes through there, but it's far enough away. Actually, I think the city owns some property in between us and that property. So there's a, I guess you'd say Mexico Apartments is closer to that than we would be.
Right, okay, thank you, sir.
One additional question. When you talk about some of the residents of this facility, just from a public infrastructure need to support this facility as far as transportation, when I look at it, and we heard a lot about transportation this night already in regards to walking trails and sidewalks and so on. So with some of the people walking from this facility, are we looking at some kind of additional sidewalk, trail, public transportation issues that we need to be thinking about here?
Well, we would certainly like to hope that we might be able to do something with the sidewalk. I know there was at one time, I believe, a gravel sort of trail, I'm going to call it, on the north side of or at least it was at one point.
It's there, it's
Is it
just
there?
got grass growing on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
At least one thought would be, maybe seeing if we could get some kind of grant or something to, maybe assist in maybe taking that somewhere closer to Clark Street. I don't know where you want to bring it back across, but yeah, that would be something that would be helpful. We do have some plans, but I mean, in terms of like transportation, I think that'll be relatively easy. We do have like a car that's
Okay.
designated to that facility that can assist with transportation needs. Like I said, there's probably, we have probably 4 to 5 residents that have cars. So as you know, sometimes there's, some bartering and things that go on there to make sure that folks get where they need to be. As well as, they'll be using taxis and things to get to employment.
Yep.
I want to say also that there's technology around this. We do have, like all the entrances have cameras on them. We'll have, so it's not a locked facility, and it's not, but we have to monitor ingress and egress in the facility. So those things are monitored. We do have at least 2 staff people who are there at all times. During the day, we have far more than that. But, I think there's several things that make this site really, it's a very peaceful kind of a site as well. It's not, we've looked at many pieces of property, and this is one that the minute we saw it, we were like, this is a nice setting, and it's, I believe it has the right mix of being close to things, but yet having a little separation as well.
Okay, thank you, Terry.
Oh, I'll go.
Pardon me?
I'm gonna-
Go ahead.
I was waiting.
All right.
My
Sorry.
turn. Well, not my turn. I was waiting for everybody else because I have a unique knowledge here. My wife happens to work for the Arthur Center, and she actually worked at the Hope Center for 4 or 5 years down in Fulton. She was one of the ones that actually opened the facility. So I had some concerns. I'm not gonna, full disclosure, I went and I talked to Terry. And so people know there's not killers there, right? There's not sex offenders there. There's not, these are just,
One of the things I talked with Chris about was sexual offenders. Are they going to be in the facility? Well, here's what it would take to get a sexual offender in the facility. You would have to basically have the permission of all the guardians or other folks that live there. Because there's a whole process of notification. We have to notify every single person in the facility or their guardian of the wish for someone to live there who is a sexual offender. Now, can you imagine getting 15 other people or 12 other people to say, yeah, that's fine? It's not going to happen. It's not that it's legally impossible, but practically impossible.
So we had that discussion. One thing also that I thought might be relevant to this discussion that I did not know is they are rezoning that property, the whole property. But my understanding is you're not buying the whole property.
No,
The Ekrans are going to actually keep the part closest to Fairground.
Yes,
that right?
We're purchasing 2 acres of the 5.9 acres, the farthest to the east of the property. So it's basically 260 by 300 feet, something like that. So it's about the, I guess, first third of the property.
So I'm just going to say I don't have concerns about the safety. My main concern really is infrastructure, as Bruce was referring to, sidewalks or something, because I know the majority of those people don't have cars. And so they're just going to be out there on the road, basically walking up and down the road, which that road has no lighting either. So that could pose a problem at night. So maybe we can look at sidewalks and possibly some kind of lighting down through there, long term. Maybe a grant, maybe we can work together somehow, maybe something.
We'd welcome to have it.
As far as the safety and, because I know that's been a thing, and it was a concern of mine as well. Like I said, my wife worked down there, and they had a lot worse people coming from the state hospital than they do nowadays. And so I wouldn't worry about safety or anything down there. Like I said, my main concern would just be infrastructure at this point.
Anything more? Anything from the public? Comments, questions? If not, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Yes.
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 Next, we have another public hearing to zone property located at 3460 South Clark to C2 General Commercial. Move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Bott,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Black,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, this request is from Irvine Capital Management, and this request is to rezone this property at this location. And again, I will turn to Rita Jackson to cover the details.
This public hearing concerns a request from Irvine Capital Management LLC, David and Alpha Irvine, owners to rezone their properties located at 3460 South Clark to C2 General Commercial, as highlighted in yellow on the attached map. This property is located on the northeast corner of South Clark and Cunningham Road. Irvine Capital Management LLC purchased this property for the development of a new VA medical clinic, which is currently under construction. As you are aware, on August 11, 2014, the property was annexed into the city limits. When property is annexed into the city, it is to be designated with a zoning classification that is in compliance with the city's land use map. The current circumstances of the property is the development of a medical clinic. Oftentimes, the annexed property is undeveloped or low-density residential. Notices were sent to 5 surrounding property owners within 185 feet of the request. City staff received no written or verbal communication regarding the rezoning. At the August 5th, 2014 Planning and Zoning meeting, the commission made a motion to make recommendation to City Council to grant approval of the requested rezoning based on the following. The zoning is in compliance with the city's land use map. The requested zoning district complied with general annexation procedures as current land uses, known future uses, and surrounding development patterns when taken into consideration. And the zoning is necessary to promote economic development and diversify the local economy. As stated earlier, the public hearing notice was ran on August the 7th and August the 14th. City staff received no additional comments. Staff recommends that council proceed with the advertised public hearing. And I must say on behalf of the Irvines, I don't think they were given notice of the meeting tonight due to my staffing situation. I forgot. So they're not present.
Probably the city clerk's fault.
Are there any questions?
I just have one question. Is this rezoning just for that parcel where they're building the building at, or does this continue on down to where it's cleared further
It's
down?
Just
for that spot where they're building.
VA clinic.
So the rest will still be in county where it's cleared out,
Yes.
not Applebee's or anything, you know?
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Bott,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Black,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Next is public hearing to rezone property located at 414 East Love from R3A, multiple family dwellings, to R3B, office and professional. I move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Bott,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Black,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor, this is a request from the American Benefits Administration, Inc., ABA, to rezone the property at this location. And I will again turn to Rita to cover the details.
This public hearing concerns a request from American Benefits Administration, Inc., ABA, Inc., to rezone their property located at 414 East Love. This is formerly the Love Street Christian Church, from R3A, multifamily dwelling, to R3B, office and professional, as shown on the attached map. ABA, Inc. is contracted with a professional employee leasing company in Oklahoma City called Corporate Resources, CR, and they share a 15-year partnership. Currently, ABA Inc. is located at 23879 Highway J, which is formerly the National Refractories Administration Building, and they employ 5 employees. Their contracting service with CR includes the processing of paperwork associated with new hires, termination, changes, benefit enrollment forms, and payroll deduction sheets for the thousands of leased employees CR has in several states. It is then transferred to CR in Oklahoma City for processing. All of ABA Inc. business activities are conducted electronically by mail or phone. There is no walk-in traffic except for deliveries from UPS or FedEx. Notices were sent to 12 surrounding property owners within 185 feet of the requested rezoning. City staff received 2 phone calls regarding the requested rezoning. The calls were with no opposition, just requesting additional information. At the August 5th, 2014 Planning and Zoning meeting, the commission made motion to recommend to City Council to grant approval of the requested rezoning. Those minutes of that meeting were attached. Staff recommends that council proceed with the advertised public hearing.
Any questions?
I have one. You know I gotta have one. Is that R3B number 8, 9, and 10 on that description? So these are actually, this property actually touches R3B?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Because I was like, that would look kind of weird having just R3B right there. Okay.
Couldn't do it if it wasn't.
Does this property go on the tax rolls then?
Yes.
Yes, it would.
Yes.
It would? Okay. It's currently not on the tax rolls.
Because it was a church, but now
Right.
it's new property. It should be on there by now.
Okay.
The new owners.
Now, this company is not the owner of the property, or are they?
ABA Inc. is the owners of this property.
They did buy it?
They did purchase it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I move to close the public hearing.
Second?
Don,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Yes.
And our final public hearing is to establish the 2014 property tax rates, and I move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Don,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Your Honor, this public hearing is to establish the property tax rate for the 2014 property tax levy to support the upcoming budget. And to cover the details, I will turn to Roger Haynes.
Good evening. Under Missouri revised statutes, each political subdivision must hold a public hearing on proposed rates, approve the tax rates, and report back to the state the ad valorem property tax rates no later than September 1st. The city was required to advertise a public notice and hearing in the local paper at least 7 days prior to tonight's public hearing, and that was done so during the week of August 11th. I have a couple of slides here under the PowerPoint presentation to give a bit of a summary on the assessed valuation comparisons. The year that, the past fiscal year, the one that we're in right now, the assessed value for the city was totaled at $140,762,000. This year, the property assessed valuation has declined about $4.5 million to $136,226,000. Next slide, please. Based on the ability for the city to make an adjustment in the levy to be revenue neutral as compared to the prior year, you can see that last year the general fund was at 0.4182 cents per $100 assessed value. This year, through State Auditor's Office calculation, we'd be allowed to make an adjustment to 0.4325 per $100 assessed valuation. The other two funds remain similar, the same as the prior year. The total adjustment in the tax rate would be 1.43 cents per $100 assessed valuation. Even with that adjustment, the revenue brought in from our levy would be about $13,000 less in the next fiscal year as compared to the fiscal year that we are in now. This is kind of a summary of how the adjustment was made. In summarizing even this summary, what they do is they take the revenue generated last year, divide it by the current assessed valuation, subtracting out new construction, and then that determines what you would be allowed as far as the general fund as far as a tax rate. And again, that computes to 43.25 cents per $100 assessed valuation. This is kind of a recap of a prior slide, breaks down what the revenue would be by fund. The general fund, it would be anticipated at $589,182. The Parks and Recreation Fund at $136,227. The Public Health Fund, $272,454. Again, that's based on 100% collection, and that is prior to the fees for collecting those revenues through the county, and of course, any taxes that might not be collected due to non-payment. As I mentioned before, the general fund with this rate adjustment would be revenue neutral. The other two funds would actually decline as far as revenue brought to those particular funds, which would be the Public Health Fund and Parks Fund. I went ahead and prepared the slides so that the council could see, the public could see what our levy has been since 2005. You can see that it was hovered around the 80 cents per $100 assessed value up until 2013. And then, of course, we made an adjustment in that levy with the passage of the parks sales tax. And again, the 2014 total levy compared to the 2015 total levy would be approximately $1.43 cents per $100 assessed valuation. As a comparison, on a home that would be on the market for around $100,000, this adjustment would impact their property tax by about $2.72.
Do you know why the personal property valuation went down by $6 million? That seems to be the issue here.
Yeah, the largest portion of that was due to revaluation of taxable personal property by industry. And then coupled with that was other personal property by individuals were down compared to the prior year.
Is it all of industry or just a particular industry?
One industry in particular, but there are two others that are following in line. The three that we are looking at would be Spartan, True, and Zero.
And this is by the State Tax Commission? Did they have a role in this?
There was a protest by one of those industries to the State Tax Commission. That has yet to get a formal announcement if that adjustment is going to be made for the year that's already been paid. But the county has concluded that they would be taxed this year as they have been in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Public comments.
Any public comments or questions? Yes.
I just wanted to make sure I saw this right before I asked.
Please give your name and address.
My name's Thomas Fiedler, and I live at 1617 Meadow Lane.
Thank you.
Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. I'm just a little concerned that the taxes are going up again on this, especially because as I understood it, whenever we had voted for the sales tax increase we did 2 years ago, give or take, property taxes were supposed to come down, and now we're immediately seeing them go back up again within 2 years. I understand the city needs to collect revenue, but that's definitely a concern to me, and I was just wondering if has there been any mention on maybe cutting somewhere so we don't have to raise our property taxes again?
I can make a couple comments if you'd like. First of all, you look at the slide that's currently up there, Thomas.
Correct.
The Parks Fund is the one that we commented that we would cut in half and reduce it. And as you can see, from the 12-year to the 13-year, that has happened and that has been maintained. And that is the same rate that we said that we would do. Even with the adjustments due to the state formula, we are still collecting less revenue. And so the intent of the state formula is to try to stay as revenue neutral as possible. And even with that, we aren't staying revenue neutral. So we're actually seeing a decrease in that as far as actual income.
Okay, so basically the way it's viewed is that this is less money for the city, but then as I look at it from an individual standpoint, each person's going to pay more. That's correct, right? Is that how?
In each year, as you can see that rate does fluctuate in the general fund, it can be up or down based on this formula. As you can see, in previous years, it's gone down, some have gone up, and it's just intended to remain net revenue neutral is how the formula works. So yes, in some years it could be a little higher, and I think as Roger indicated, this year, by this would be like $2 on a $100,000 house. As we look at previous years, it went down more than that. So it's a balancing act is what it comes to.
Within the state statutes, there's protections both ways. So if you have assessed value go down and there are needs that need to be provided by the city, and of course costs are associated with those needs, they will allow you to adjust the rate to where it's basically revenue neutral. Now, if we were to have a year where we had tremendous growth as far as construction and industry, it also has a cap as to how much it allows you to grow, which in last year is like 1.5% CPI, the lesser of 1.5 CPI or 5%. And if those trigger, then that's when your rate would actually come down. And that's why you're seeing some of those fluctuations on there as far as the rates going up and down.
So our growth was then less this year than it had been?
As far as assessed value, Now, you may have growth this year that hasn't completed yet that will show up in the following tax year.
And that'd be something like if I bought a car this year, I don't pay the tax on it until I get to next year's.
That's correct. That'd be a good
addressing
example.
on that. Okay.
And as you look at the total levy, even this year is still lower than most of the years previous anyway, as far as the total rate.
Right, yeah, and to be honest, I only moved here a few years ago, so I did see one drop in 2012, or between 2012 and 2013, I guess. But to me, all I've seen is one drop and then an immediate increase. And as somebody who voted with the understanding that my taxes would go down, that's how it was explained to me whenever I voted on it. And that's where I think a lot of people kind of.
And that's where you can look at the Parks Fund, that is still saying that same thing, lowered it by 10 cents.
Correct, yes,
Yeah.
and I understand that. I'm just saying though that my understanding was I was paying less into that because I'm paying more.
And you are, because of the Parks Fund. It is reduced in half.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Public comments?
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Trump,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Lush,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Next is a resolution, Bill number 2014-51, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a renewal sublease of business property with Home Depot USA Incorporated. Reading and passage. Bruce?
Yes, Your Honor, we have the lease with Home Depot on the city's spec building on Christopher Drive. We originally did a one-year lease with two 6-year or 6-month renewals. We have run those, and then they also asked for an additional year, and that was approved last year, and they're now asking for an additional term. And to cover the details of this term and the lease payment, I will turn to Russell Rudge.
As Bruce mentioned, we have the 100,800 square foot city building. that we have leased for the previous 3 years. And speaking with Tom Bushin, the Vice President of Real Estate for Home Depot, they've expressed interest in an additional 3-year term, or excuse me, 2-year term. And the lease itself would increase from $12,750 per month to $13,000. Continue to be operated as a distribution facility. Staff recommends the council proceed with the reading and passage of the resolution.
How much is that, how much is our payment on that building?
Roughly 100,000 annually.
How much do we have left on, how many years?
I think as we move into the new budget year, I think it was 8, isn't it?
Yeah. So, getting close.
2 years closer.
I move we read bill number 2014-51.
Second.
Yes.
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 Yes. Bill
No.
number,
Oh, I was-
go ahead.
Okay. Bill number 2014-51, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a renewal sublease of business property with Home Depot USA Incorporated. Whereas the City of Mexico recognizes the need to promote economic welfare in the community by fostering and facilitating the creation of supporting jobs. And whereas the City of Mexico has a 100,800 square foot industrial building located at Route JJ 2501 Christopher Drive that is currently being rented by Home Depot USA Incorporated to support economic growth, and whereas Home Depot USA Incorporated is interested in renewing the sublease of the city industrial building for an additional 2-year term. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Mexico, Missouri as follows. Section 1, the city manager is hereby authorized to execute a renewal sublease of business property with Home Depot USA Incorporated for the city industrial building located at JJ 2501 Christopher Drive. This resolution shall be in full force and effect from and after the time of its passage. Move for passage of bill number 2014-51.
Second.
Yes.
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 Next is an ordinance, Bill number 2014-52, an ordinance rezoning property located at Fairground and Teal Lake Road and amending the district map referred to in Section 15-142 of the Code of the City of Mexico, Missouri, zoning to R3B Office and Professional. 2 readings by title only and passage. Bruce?
Yes, Your Honor. Earlier this evening, we had the public hearing on this, so unless there are any additional questions, Your Honor, the ordinance has been posted the required length of time.
I can't do anything. I have to recuse myself.
Your Honor, I move for first reading of bill number 2014-52 by title only.
Second.
Yes.
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 I'm going to recuse myself since my wife works for them.
Bill number 2014-52, an ordinance rezoning property located at Fairground and Teal Lake Road and amending the district map referred to in Section 15-142 of the Code of the City of Mexico, Missouri, zoning to R3B Office and Professional. I would move for second reading by title only.
Second.
Yes.
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 Recuse myself.
Bill number 2014-52, an ordinance rezoning property located at Fairground and Teal Lake Road and amending the district map referred to in Section 15-142 of the Code of the City of Mexico, Missouri, zoning to R3B Office and Professional. Your Honor, I move for passage of bill number 2014-52.
Second.
Yes.
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 Recuse myself.
Next, we have Bill number 2014-53, an ordinance zoning property located at 3460 South Clark and amending the district map referred to in Section 15-142 of the Code of the City of Mexico, Missouri, zoning to C2 General Commercial. 2 readings by title only and passage. Bruce?
Yes, Your Honor. Again, we held the public hearing earlier this evening, so unless there are any questions, we would attempt to answer those. Otherwise, the ordinance has been posted the required length of time.
I move for first reading bill number 2014-52.
Second.
Yes.
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 Yes. Bill number 2014-52, an ordinance rezoning property located at Fairground and Teal Lake Road and amending the district map referred to in section 15-142 of the Code of the City of Mexico, Missouri, zoning to R3B, office and professional. I move for second reading of.
We're off one.
Oh, am I off one?
Yeah, we just read that one.
We just did that one.
Well, I was wanting to do it again. Because I had to recuse myself the first time. Bill number 2014-53, an ordinance zoning property located at 3460 South Clark and amending the district map referred to in section 15-142 of the Code of the City of Mexico, Missouri, zoning to C2 general commercial. I move for second reading of bill number 2014-53.
Second.
Yes.
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 Yes. Bill number 2014-53, an ordinance zoning property located at 3460 South Clark, amending the district map referred to in section 15-142 of the Code of the City of Mexico, Missouri, zoning to C2 general commercial. I move for passage of bill number 2014-53.
Second.
Yes.
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 Bill number 2014-54, an ordinance rezoning property located at 414 East Love and amending the district map referred to in section 15-142 of the Code of the City of Mexico, Missouri, zoning to R3B, office and professional. 2 readings by title only and passage.
Your Honor, once again, this ordinance, we had the public hearing earlier this evening. And again, if there are any questions, we will attempt to answer those. Otherwise, the ordinance has been posted the required length of time.
I move for first reading of bill number 2014-54.
Second.
Yes.
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 Bill number 2014-54, an ordinance rezoning property located at 414 East Love and amending the district map referred to in section 15-142 of the Code of the City of Mexico, Missouri to R3B, office and professional. I move for second reading by title only of bill number 2014-54.
Second.
Yes.
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 Bill number 2014-54, an ordinance rezoning property located at 414 East Love and amending the district map referred to in section 15-142 of the Code of the City of Mexico, Missouri to R3B, office and professional. Move for passage of bill number 2014-54.
Second.
Second.
Yes.
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 Next is bill number 2014-55, an ordinance levying taxes on all property for the fiscal year October 1, 2014 to September 30, 2015. Up for 2 readings by title only and passage. Bruce?
Yes, as before, we held the public hearing earlier this evening, and unless there are any additional questions, once again, this ordinance has been posted required length of time.
I will make one comment now that I can, now that the rezoning request was made, you know. Hopefully it'll go down next year because Arthur Spinner is building a couple of multi-million-dollar facilities, so. But that won't be, that'll stay another year, won't it, before it takes effect?
I don't know about tax exemption.
Oh, yeah, darn. Let's revote. No, I'm just kidding.
May I ask a question, Your Honor? Roger, it's my understanding, or my recollection, rather, that there is a consequence to not approving this.
That is correct. Since it's an even numbered year, if you don't accept the new ceiling, whatever you set the ceiling at now, sets the
Yeah.
ceiling next year too.
Right.
So it does remove the ability to make an adjustment next fiscal year.
I would say, you had the right question. I was thinking the same thing when he was up there, because I used to fight these fights up here, and I finally got it explained. I mean, it's a revenue neutral deal. If we don't take it, then we lose it. And so I changed my tune and I just go along with it. Now, if it became excessive, there might be a different story, but there's caps on it in place to help protect.
And that's
people.
set by the state auditor's
Yeah.
office, not us.
Yep.
Your Honor, I'd move for first reading by title only of bill number 2014-55.
Second.
Yes.
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 Bill number 2014-55, an ordinance levying taxes on all property for the fiscal year October 1st, 2014 to September 30th, 2015 for the city of Mexico, Missouri. I move for second reading by title only.
Second.
Yes.
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 Bill number 2014-55, an ordinance levying taxes on all property for the fiscal year October 1st, 2014 to September 30, 2015 for the city of Mexico, Missouri. And I would move for passage of bill number 2014-55.
Second.
Yes.
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 Next, we have the claims.
I move we pay the bills.
Second.
Yes.
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 Next, we have council comments. Councilman Lesh.
First of all, I want to offer congratulations to Roger on receiving this from the Government Finance Officers Association, the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. I don't know how many years in a row this is. 25 years in a row. That has to be some kind of record, but that's great reporting. We know that our financial reporting is in good hands with you, Roger. So thank you. We were able to, Mayor and I were able to attend the groundbreaking the other day for Spartan Light Metals, and that's a good addition for our community. 68,000 square foot addition, $17 million investment in our community. And I assume eventually they will be paying some taxes. I'm not sure when, but how that works. But it is a good investment, and we had a lot of discussion this evening from our comprehensive plan folks about the need for economic development, and I think that's something that we really need to work at in our community to keep our community growing. And even though we don't have a new business to announce, 70 to 80% of the jobs created in this country come from existing businesses. So this is a good addition. I've been in this community now for a little over 20 years, and I don't remember in a 20-year period where we've celebrated 3 groundbreakings within a 2-week period. Coming up this week, we have groundbreaking for the Help Center. That's on Thursday at 10 a.m. And then on September 4th is the groundbreaking for the Arthur Center. So there are some good things happening in our community. Construction and construction jobs created there, and hopefully some good jobs into the future. So congratulations on all those.
I'd like to echo Mr. Lesh's congratulations to Roger. Quite an achievement. So kudos. I'd also like to say thank you to the Arthur Center for investing so much money in our community. So that's, of course, I just learned you might be tax exempt and we cannot tax your property, but The Soybean Festival, that was a great event. It was really, really hot. I do have a question about the Soybean Festival. How did that go as the night went on with the open drinking area as far as public safety? No problems? Okay, that's good, because that was a concern some people had early, and I said I'll ask how it went, and it went well then. And referring to economic development, one of the things that we talked about earlier in the day at the last meeting was, and this is reference to something Russell's done, is education's a key for these businesses. And it's one of the things that our businesses in town have come to us and said, we need a better educated workforce. I mean, that's what our businesses have come and said, that's what we need. And to that end, I'd like to congratulate you guys for getting the Work Ready, is that right? Program is up and running yet, or will be soon?
It's a 2-year process.
2-year process?
Yeah, up to 2 years to complete that process. Only 10 communities have been able to actually get it finalized in the entire United States. So we're hopefully one of those in the future.
Well wishes on your way, because that's something definitely we need in our community. That would be all I had.
Okay, Councilman Miller?
Well, I'm pleased to see the award, Roger, again, but having had the privilege of working with you for a number of years, I didn't need that award to tell me what a great job you do. You do a great job. Your staff does a great job. Thank you very much for your hard work. I chickened out of the soybean festival this year. It was a little too warm for my taste. But I'm glad we had a good crowd up there.
You didn't have any little ones to take, you know?
Nope, nope. And a wife in an arm sling, so. Ron, to just kind of further echo your point, you said you've been in the community 20 years. This last, what was it, a week ago, the 17th, was my first day on the job as a public safety officer 40 years ago. And I had planned on staying about 4 or 5 years to get a little training going. But the community has been good to me, and I like the community I have. I guess I'm lazy, and could be either one. But
Do we need to ask your wife?
no, I don't think we need to ask. Those don't bother me. But I am pleased to have been here for 4 years now, and very thankful for a good community. And I think, despite what some may say, the naysayers, as Troy said earlier, this is a great community, and it's full of reasonable people. It's full of honest people, and it's full of hard-working people. Now, you've got those 3 things. I don't think you can ask for more. So, Mr. Mayor, that concludes my speech.
Well, all right, thank you. I'm glad you're either lazy or you wanted to stick around. Bruce?
Well, and I want to compliment Spartan as well for their addition and jobs. But we've had a number of good things go on in the community this year, and to hear about those things, tomorrow night is the State of the Community address. And there will be a lot of entities tomorrow night talking about things that's going on in the community. But just to give you a little snippet of some of the things that has gone on, and this will be held at the 4-H Center tomorrow night, but you know, in just this community alone, Rita and I reviewed those numbers this morning again, and out of new building permits this year alone, we've had $18.6 million in value, and that doesn't count Spartan yet. As I look at the employment and or unemployment numbers of the community, and I look at that the number employed since the 1st of January, we have an additional 574 people employed in this community since the 1st of January. We have 12,180 people employed in this community right now, and that is the first time we've seen those employment numbers in over 12 years. So there are things happening. There are good things happening. And I just think tomorrow night we'll get a chance to talk about a few more of those. So hopefully you show up and hear about those. That's all I have.
Thank you. Roger, we are blessed as a city to have someone who has the talent and the dedication to do the job that you have done so ably and so well, and you definitely do deserve the certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting, and I would like to present that to you right now. I was really interested in, well, I want to say, congratulations to Spartan and the Arthur Center and all these projects that are going on. It's the new VA clinic and all that. It's amazing to see all this stuff coming up out of the ground and going to be coming up out of the ground. And it was really interesting to me tonight to hear the folks talk about the comprehensive plan, and to have someone actually stand up and say, you have to take risks and don't fear to fail. Now, as a long-time entrepreneur, I've spent very few years being paid by anyone else. That is something that is essential for an entrepreneur. And as a city, it's sometimes hard to do. It's sometimes hard to get in the mode to take risk. But I think our city needs to be an environmentalist. We need to create the environment for people to be able to take risk and support those people in their risk. And so, we're going to have to step out a little bit. We don't want to throw money around, just like you said, but we're going to have to create a culture that says, let's get out there and make it happen. So, okay, that's all I have. It's time for public comments. Anyone who'd like to comment, please step forward, give your name and address.
My name is Charles Fry. I live at 310 Vine. The reason I'm here tonight is to solicit the support of the City Council as we prepare for Patriots Day 2014. My church and working with Steve Shaw with the Audrain County Emergency Management Office, we've been very successful. And we think this year that we need to just do about the same thing we've been doing. And the reason that I'm here tonight, I'm requesting that the facilities from the Mexico Public Safety be utilized on that day. The vision is, and personal vision, is to have on that particular day at 12 o'clock, everything in Mexico hopefully will come to a standstill. And we will have the blast from all of the emergency vehicles, a loud blast or sirens blowing for 60 seconds, followed by 60 seconds of silence. And we're asking that this be the community participate, schools, businesses, wherever you are, just stop for 60 seconds on Thursday, September 11th, in observance of Patriots Day. And we're going to ask, if possible, that the vehicles that we have here in our community, that they be on display here on our parking lot and also around our beautiful courthouse, so our public can see it, that it's where your money's going. This is why you pay taxes. And I think it's going to be a great day. So I just rise to ask the support of the council, and I'll be in contact with the chief, because she's been very instrumental in helping us for the last 4 years. And I'm just looking forward to it. I think Patriots Day is very important. We can never be to the point where we're relaxed. And there are things going on now where we know we cannot be relaxed. There are people out there that could hurt America. So I just stand today to ask for your support, and if anything that you can do just in your participation, we would appreciate it. But definitely, if the Mexico Public Safety and all the vehicles, and I also be working with Little Dixie, they normally are part of it also. But this is a community effort, Patriots Day 2014, Mexico City. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
My name's Thomas Fiedler, I'm at 1617 Meadow Lane. I haven't moved in the last 5 minutes or so. I just want to say, in terms of some of the things I mentioned about the taxes and things like that, you know, I do recognize a lot of good things going on in the city. Been coming to meetings now. I've been to every meeting in the last 4 or 5 months. So, you know, roughly somewhere between 8 to a dozen meetings. And every time, with the exception of one, that something has come up for zoning, it has been approved so that the businesses could move in. And the one that wasn't, I think that's had something to do with the county or something, so it wasn't even really something that could be approved anyways. So I acknowledge a lot of good things. My big concern with the taxes, though, is, you know, I get the revenue neutral thing, but it wasn't revenue neutral for all the people paying the taxes. It's only revenue neutral for the city. You know, and so for me, for the people I work with, for my friends, for my family, we're all going to pay more, and that's just a hard thing for people to swallow, especially when we look around and, you know, we have the park tax in there, and I played in the city softball league, and the field was terrible. I mean, absolutely terrible. There was patches of grass, balls were taking bad hops on people, you know? So we had things like that. But yeah, overall as a city and as a town and as a community, I love this city and I love this town. I'm excited to be a part of it. Definitely am glad about the way things are moving. And Bruce, I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned State of the Community address tomorrow night?
The State of the Community is an event that is put on by the Chamber of Commerce. It is from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. tomorrow night. That'll be held at the 4-H Center. And 7 o'clock will be the time frame when I want to say there's 5 or 6 different entities that will be speaking regarding the things that's going on in their environment.
Awesome. And that's open to the public?
Open to the public, yep.
And it starts at 6 and roughly till 8, I'm sure.
Correct.
Depending on how long people
Right.
talk. And if people like me waste their time and stuff, right? So. Awesome.
Program starts at 7.
Terrific. That's all I need to get out of my mouth. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Yes.
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 Yes.